I can have more consistency in my career now. Because before I had that consistency with Titan FC, but then I don't know exactly what's been going on with Titan FC, but it just hasn't really been going. And then after that, I was kind of just left in limbo and not really having fights and stuff like that. So it's nice to have a goal to shoot towards to and stuff like that. But yeah, for sure. Yeah, American Top Team, like I enjoyed the aspect of like training with some of the best guys in the world, like getting rounds in with like Pantoja or getting rounds in with like Kyoji Horiguchi and stuff like that. It's my pro debut. And I remember the craziest thing that I was like, oh shit, this is getting real. There was like a part in the contract where it said, if you die, and I was like, oh, okay. And they're like, we'll give $500,000, and they're like, you can pick like 4 people that you would want to receive, like they would split it between 4 people.
Ladies and germs, welcome back to the goddamn room. With us today is future world champion, absolutely a fucking stud on the mats, phenomenal fighter, just made his LFA debut, our good friend Christian the Kraken Ynastrilla. What's up, brother, man?
How you doing, brother? Pleasure to be on the show, and yeah, I look forward to talking to you and all the fans. I look forward to it.
Absolutely, my brother. All right, so I've been looking forward to this one for a little while, so let's get it cracking. No pun intended. Well, pun intended. But in order to understand the present and catch a glimpse of the future, we need to visit the past. So what were you like as a child, Christian?
Man, honestly, as a child, I was a really scared kid. I got bullied a lot. Yeah, I never really thought I'd be a fighter. I think, like, if you would have told younger me that, I think that'd be the last thing I ever predicted. I played baseball as a kid. I swam as a kid. I played like flag football, basketball. I played a lot of different sports. But yeah, I was really like a scared kid. I was always scared of confrontation. And then yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, so younger me was definitely nothing like I am now.
Yeah, because you're so outgoing and like you're very fun, and I always see you having a blast and just fucking around, which I think is awesome.
Yeah.
For those of you who haven't seen it yet, go to follow his IG. He's fucking hysterical. Some of the stuff he posts is hilarious, but I love it. So someone was like, "Really? For real?" I was about to be like, I was super outgoing. I had all the friends. So I was expecting. So it's pretty cool to hear that. But can you walk us through your martial arts journey? Because you go from being a kid that's being bullied into martial arts. Where did you start in your martial arts journey?
Man, I actually started, I think I was like 13, and then I had a friend that he was doing Taekwondo, and it was like in a school right by my house. And then he had told me, he was like, hey man, I don't have any friends. I'm kind of just coming to this by myself. He's like, you want to like come in and we can do it together and go to the classes and stuff. And then I was like a chunky kid at the time, and I was like, yeah, sure. I just go home and just chill. And then I was like, okay. So I told my dad. My dad took me, and then I started going to Taekwondo practices with my friend. And then my friend ended up quitting because he got bored of it. And then I like absolutely fell in love with it, and I just like stuck with it. And then for a long time, I wanted to be like a kickboxer, but I had no idea what wrestling and grappling was until I think it was like UFC 111, GSP and Dan Hardy. I started seeing that like on commercials and stuff, and I was like, what the hell is that? And then I started like watching it, and then I was just seeing the way that GSP could like blend everything together. I was like, I need to do that. And then funny enough, I think faith works in a weird way. I went to a Taekwondo tournament, and then after the tournament, there was like this small MMA gym where some coach went, and he was like, "Oh, would you be interested in doing MMA?" And then I was like, "This has to be like a sign from God." So then I just started going. It was like a small gym. It was nothing crazy, but I started like getting my feet wet with Brazilian jiu-jitsu and a little bit of wrestling, and I started doing like grappling tournaments and stuff. And then when I was 19 is when I joined the American Top Team Miramar, and then 18, sorry. And then from then on, just the rest is history. I started fighting amateur when I was 19, and then I just kind of took off from there.
That's fucking dope. The people don't really have it work so well, so I'm happy that it kind of goes from, hey, I'm thinking about it, and then like the opportunity sits on a golden platter, and you're like, okay, I get it. The moment, like the clouds part.
Yeah, I swear, I think that guy had like the little golden light shining on top of him.
It just flashlight, like, hey, bro, this one. I'm happy you got into it, but
right.
What's that aha moment? What hit you in the head, and you're like, you know what? I want to fight for the rest of my life. This is what I'm going to dedicate my life to. And secondary question to add to that: what did your mom think? Because I know Latino moms. I'm Dominican. My mom saw me come home with one shiner and was crying. It was like murder. It was the funniest thing ever for me.
So what was the first part of the question again? Sorry.
What was the aha moment that led you to become a fighter?
So Funny enough, bro, when I was so that local gym that I went to, it was like a small gym. It had closed, right? And I think that was around the time that I was 17 turning 18. And in the state of Florida, you can't fight amateur until you're 18. So I started training like at a boxing gym, and then I was still doing jujitsu like on the side from the first guy that started teaching me. He was like a really good purple belt that was teaching me, but I wasn't really trained like an MMA fighter. Like that's not training boxing and a little bit of jujitsu. That's not MMA. So I took an amateur fight and I fought like some guy that was 3-0, and I had just turned 18, and he was like 39 or 30. Terrible idea, but I go in there and it goes absolutely fucking terrible. And he like I got a takedown, but then he ended up like submitting me with a guillotine in the first round. And then like after that, bro, oddly enough, I remember like with my friends and stuff, I had told myself like I was like as shitty as that felt, like I never felt more alive in my life. And then that's when I kind of told myself, I was like, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this the right way. So then I started working my first part-time job at like Winn Dixie, and then I saved up money, and then I started looking for like the best MMA gyms near me, and I found American Top Team Miramar, and then I started going there, and then I started doing things the right way, and then I ended up winning, 3 amateur titles with Combat Night and stuff, but before that, yeah, man, I would say that was definitely the aha moment. Even though I lost, yeah, I just really fell in love with the sport, and I fell in love with just everything about it. And then the second part of the question, bro, yeah, my mom, yeah, that's a tough one, bro. Like my mom's Cuban, and I love my mom to death, but like my mom is very like she wants me to work like an office job and just go home and do that. And that's not that there's anything wrong with that. There's plenty of people that do that, but that's just not for me. And I think me and her we butted heads a lot. And I feel like even now she she respects it, but I wouldn't say she's like the huge fan. But I think we've gotten to a point where she just respects what I do. I think she's seen through the ups and the downs that I've stuck with this, and it's not something that like I'm doing it to be cool, and then like I have one setback and I just stop doing it like other people do. I think she sees that this is like a passion and a career that I want to chase, and I think she just respects it. But I would say I don't I don't think it'll be anything more than that, honestly.
But I respect that, and I've asked before from other fighters. Some fighters say their mom supported them because they
Yeah.
have like their dad in the house, and then some of them have told me, yeah, my mom was like with the Band-Aid kit, and my mom can't watch the fight. I mean, my mother told me straight up, she's like, I'm not watching.
Yeah, my
I'm
mom
just
don't watch.
gonna.
Yeah, but
She's like, I'm
she'll
just
I
gonna.
call her after. That's about it, and then
Yeah,
I let her
that's
know how it
typical.
went. Yeah,
I feel you. It's nothing, It's nothing that we both understand that our parents they just love us and they just
yeah,
don't want to see us get
exactly.
hurt. But you started German Maker in 2014, and then from 2014 to 2017, you had this really nice amateur career. You really got a lot of experience, and then you came in to Combat Night, which is like really prominent promotion.
Yeah,
Thank you to Mitchell again for that, like doing what he's been doing even now.
yeah, he's the
But
man.
do you feel that experience helped you in your pro career? Like when you first got to your first pro fight, where you're like, I'm kind of familiar to this with this feeling.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Mitchell and everyone from Combat Night. I really feel like, man, I feel like every amateur fight I had was like a professional fight. Like I'm 15 fights deep into my professional career right now, but like I really feel like, dude, my like especially like when I had the belt and I started being like the main event or the co-main event, like bro, just how packed out that place was. And it used to be at Passions nightclub, so this not like now it's at Sway, so it's like a little bit of a smaller venue. But like at Passions, it was really cool because it was like 2 stories, and then like I think the blue corner was in the second floor, red corner was in the first floor, and bro, it was just so big and like so many people. I remember I fought on the last show before they knocked it down to make the guitar, and I had fought for the belt there, and I was the co-main event, bro. And I remember just going into the cage and the amount of people that were there, and there was like a bunch of people cheering for me and a bunch of people cheering for my opponent, and it was just such a crazy experience, and just the level of opposition I faced there too. I feel like I faced a lot of good guys like coming up in the amateurs, and I feel like that prepared me a lot to become like the pro that I am today, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. I have seen some of the clips of some of the fights that you had back in Combat, and I was like, wow, it's so intense in there, man. Those guys really love the sport in Florida, and
Yeah,
there's a huge turnout, like nothing else.
yeah,
But you turned pro in 2017, and you went up in Bellator against Christopher Daniel, who I think is one of the best fighters in the world. Super underrated, but
yeah.
like you step in for the first time and you see this fucking guy across from you. But a lot of people had him touted as one of the top prospects. Can you recall like that first walk as a pro?
Yeah, man. Well, me and Chris have been linked for a while. Like, we're actually cool now. But man, we had a pretty intense rivalry, I would say, because that amateur show that I was telling you before they knocked it, I fought him for the belt, Chris. So I fought Chris for the belt, and we had a really competitive fight. I ended up winning the belt against him, and always after my fights, win or lose, I always like to be on good terms with my opponents. I don't really see the point in having these like heated grudges and stuff. I don't feel like the feeling was mutual at that time with him. Yeah, so then shortly after, I went pro, like I think a fight later after that, and then Chris was still amateur and he hadn't won the belt yet. So then Chris wins the belt after I already go pro, and I was waiting to get my pro debut at Combat Night, but that had been taking a while. So then Chris wins the belt and he starts calling me out and he's making all these posts and he's just talking trash and talking trash and talking trash. And then finally, my coach Roger Crawl, he's saying that he has an opportunity for me to make my pro debut on Bellator, and I was like, hell yeah! I was like, I'm super down. Like Rampage Jackson was there, Dan Henderson was gonna be there. That was super cool. And then I was like, oh, who am I gonna fight? And he's like, Chris Daniel, and I was like, oh, here we go again. And then yeah, bro, leading up to that fight, that was super intense because he was just talking a lot, and I get it. Some people want to sell the fight that way, or that's how they feel like they need to get motivated for a fight. But it really fired me up at the same time, and I feel like it really made me bring my A game, especially because the first time we fought, it was a very competitive fight, I felt. And then going into that rematch, I knew it was gonna be like a dog fight. And then yeah, we got in there, and that was a super cool experience. We fought outside in front of like all the NASCAR fans. That was super cool. And then yeah, going into that fight, I was able to submit him in the first round, but that fight I felt super locked in. Like I knew like what kind of opponent he was. I was kind of comfortable. Also, we had fought for 9 minutes already, and I felt like I had a good amount of like tape on him too, like all his amateur fights after we fought, I saw too, and I felt like I prepared super hard. And yeah, man, thank God it went my way, and I was able to. I think I caught him in an armbar. I think like less than 2 minutes into the first round, and yeah.
Damn. I mean, shout out to Christopher Daniel, guys.
Yeah, he's a dope guy, bro.
Guys is dangerous. So to have that kind of like, he chased me up into the pros. Like, god damn it, it was almost like the Jay-Z DMX. Jay-Z, where you at?
Right, bro. That's really what it felt like, bro. I was like, yo, I swear, you don't gotta hate me that much.
It's not easy, man.
Right.
But contrary to what a lot of people believe, the pre-fight ritual really does mean a lot to some folks. What was your pre-fight ritual like back then, and has it changed since the first pro fight?
I would say really like I've never had a pre-fight ritual, honestly. Like, other than like my mom, she'll pray for me like before. Like I'll do a prayer with her before I leave to the venue and stuff. That was something I still do that to this day. I would say in the venue, the only thing I really like to do like right before I walk out, I'll do like a little prayer. I would say that would be the only pre-fight ritual that I have. But other than that, I kind of like when I'm in the back, I just like to really focus on like my breath and just focusing on my breathing and stuff like that. And then as the fight starts getting closer, just warm up and stuff. But I wouldn't say I have any particular pre-fight ritual, honestly.
No, it's tough, man. I would have thought y'all had like a whole system down, because some
No.
fighters do that. I know some people want to have to, because they have to, like Fedor Emelianenko apparently used to play Go Fish. Like he wouldn't watch the fights, he'd turn the TV off and play Go Fish and not think about it until like 20 minutes before curtain.
Okay.
And then he'd start to warm up, and then he'd start. But he like completely just didn't. To him, it was like, yeah, whatever's happening out there is out there right now.
Yeah, exactly.
We just have a good time and laugh. They'll watch Ridiculousness. They were showing him in the back watching Ridiculousness, laughing like 5 minutes before a fight.
Oh shit.
Then he goes out there stone cold and kills the guy, and we're like,
bro, his poker face is one of the craziest I've seen in MMA.
Brother, to have Kevin Randleman slam you on your head and your facial expression does not change. Like, we saw this man scout move like this when he landed and come back, and he was like, all right, cool, I'm just going to roll around and break his arm. Excuse me, sir? Sir.
We got to test what's in his blood or what he drinks in his water or something.
Something in the water. I'm telling you, we got to go to St. Petersburg and just, like, start getting Russian water and just, like, bring it back. We're like, all right, let's see what goes on over there in this part of the world. But you've got some amazing, fucking amazing, just experience overall as a pro. You competed in Bellator, Titan FC, AFL. And then this past weekend, you debuted in LFA. What have you taken away on the business side of the sport? Because, when you have to work with so many reputable promotions, there's obviously things that you're like, oh, wait, when I was in Bellator and I was doing my contracts, I realized that A, B, and C really line up better for me. Do you have anything about at least the business side of this that you're like, you know what? Over the years, something I've noticed, this and this works better for me on my contracts.
I mean, as far as I think right now in the regional scene, like I feel like all these shows really pay similarly, honestly. Like I don't feel like the money goes up too much like if it's LFA or if it's Titan or if it's AFL. I feel like it's always around the same ballpark range as far as pay goes, like maybe a couple hundred it'll be the difference. Um Man, I would say this fight on LFA it was super cool cuz it was like the first time that I fought outside of Florida, so that was super cool. I would say that would be probably the only difference. 'Cause before that, all of my fights have been within Florida. Like I fought in Tampa, I fought in West Palm Beach, I fought in Homestead, I fought in Miami, Fort Lauderdale. But I wouldn't say right now like the contracts aren't just too crazy just because these are really like one fight offs. Like I fight one time and I'm not like tied to a promotion right now. But I would say Bellator was really the craziest one because I remember, obviously I'd never had a pro contract before because that was my pro debut, and I remember the craziest thing that I was like, "Oh shit, this is getting real." There was like a part in the contract where it said, "If you die," and I was like, "Oh, okay," and they're like, "We'll give $500,000," and they're like, "You can pick like four people that you would want to receive like they would split it between four people, or if you just want one person or two people or like whatever the number is." And I remember reading that and I was like, well, first I was like, damn, I'm only worth 500K. I feel like I'm worth a little more than that, just to be fair. And then second, I was like when I read the word die, like, when I go into, I know there's some fighters that they're like, oh, it's the last day I'm only like, you know, I never view past the fight. Like people tell me, what do you want to do after the fight? And I always think of the fight, but it's not 'cause I think I'm going to die or anything like that. But like reading that, I think that brought like a real intensity to it. Like I was like, oh, shit, okay. And then to legitly have to like write my mom and dad's name on that paper, I was like, holy shit. Like, so yeah, I would say that was probably the craziest thing I've read in a contract before. Cause other than that, I would say all these other shows, like right now the pay is pretty similar. Honestly, I wouldn't say it's anything out of this world that different from like one from the other. So yeah, I would say I was probably the craziest one like experience that I had reading a contract right now.
They didn't just make a death waiver. They were like, hey, so we have a life insurance for you just
Yeah.
in case, because shit happens. Oh my God. That shit would terrify me. But I mean, I think there were other promotions that had that. I think Pride had that at some point too.
Oh
They had
yeah.
told the fighters, like, hey, if you die, we'll pay your family. We'll pay some respects. You get buried wherever the fuck you get buried, and that'll be the end of it. We'll deal with that. And I'm like, bro, that's we haven't had a death in MMA, thank God.
Yeah,
But
let's keep it that
like,
way.
yeah, let's never have that ever again. So
Yeah. Bro,
that's
it was
hilarious.
so blunt too, the way it said, and like it had death in like bold letters, and I was like, okay. Like, I was like reading through the contract, and I was, oh yeah, I was 21, and I'm just like reading through it, and I was like, oh, all right, this is getting a lot more serious than I thought.
21-year-old me would have been like, I'm not signing the contract.
It's like that little Homer Simpson meme. I just like go back into the grass and disappear.
Yo, I would have too. Oh my God, brother, that's scary as fuck.
Yeah, bro.
Oh shit. So you were training out of ATT for a while. Excuse me, AT&T. Good Lord help me. And I just had freaking Wade Rome on here.
Oh,
But we
good.
did have one of the founding members of American Top Team on the podcast recently, Wade Rome, fucking legend.
Yeah.
4th degree black belt under Ricardo Laborio. You were training under the premier MMA team or super team in MMA, but your current team, you switched teams, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, can you tell me about this new team? Because my bad, I'm not going to pretend that I know every single team in MMA because there's so many now. Some of them are like subsidiaries of another team. And what's this new team like? And then who are your head coaches? And I'm like, how's the vibe been since this change?
This change has been for a while. Our gym used to be called American Top Team Sunrise, so we were just like an affiliate of American Top Team, and then that ended up changing, and we became MMA Science Academy. But I've been in this gym for a long time. I used to be at American Top Team Miramar, but then during COVID, it shut down. So then I kind of didn't have a gym for a while, and I was always cross training at MMA Science Academy, regardless. eventually I just ended up moving there full time. Like I think like at the end of 2021 I made that decision until now, so I've been there since then. Yeah, American Top Team, you know, like I enjoyed the aspect of like training with some of the best guys in the world, like getting rounds in with like Pantoja or getting rounds in with like Kyoji Horiguchi and stuff like that. But I feel like there was definitely like a lack of coaching there, like in my like unless you're Pantoja or you're something like that, you're not really getting looked at, and you're not really gonna like. I think the biggest thing I could say there was like you learn how to survive a lot better, because obviously you're going with guys that are world class, and I just turned pro, so like in a sense it's either you learn how to swim or you sink really quickly. And I would say the biggest difference now, I've kind of just made my training a lot more like kind of like how they do in boxing, where they make the camp around them. Like I want the focus to be me, because obviously I'm the one that has to get in there and fight. I don't want to like, just be a body for somebody. And I feel like that's what it was a lot. And then eventually at American Top Team, they started getting really strict on like you not training elsewhere. So that was kind of where I had the falling out, because I live all the way in Hialeah, so like I live pretty far. Like Coconut Creek is about 45 minutes from my house, and I remember one day Conan Silverio, who's like one of like the head coaches over there, like brought me to his office, and he was like, if you want to be a part of this team, you have to be here every day. And like I was going 3 days a week, but it's like, yeah, I can't come there every day. And then he started telling me I couldn't cross train, like I couldn't have any coaches that weren't within American Top Team, like the main facility. And it's like none of those coaches give me attention, so how would I make them my coach? Like none of it really made sense, just from a logistics standpoint, just what he was saying. And then yeah, we just kind of went back and forth, and then pretty much he told me it's either I'm there 5 days a week not training anywhere else, or I really couldn't be a part of the team anymore. And obviously that was impossible. I couldn't be there 5 days a week just because it's too far, and I would make the sacrifice and get there like 2-3 days out of the week. And I think another thing I didn't like too was I used to go to sparring there, and I stopped going to sparring there because a lot of times like I would be getting around there with like Shorty Torres or like Pantoja. And like one of the coaches would like kind of sub me out and like make me sit around. And it's like, I'm not driving 45-50 minutes to just like sit on the sidelines and stuff. So I feel like, yeah, it was just a lot of stuff where it didn't really make a lot of sense. And yeah, and then I ended up, uh, I went back to like ATT Miramar, but then it shut down during COVID. And then, yeah, now I'm just at MMA Science Academy. And then my grappling and wrestling coach is Michael Tavares. Man, I really
Yeah.
think he's a stud, and I think he doesn't really coach a lot of MMA fighters. He's only a year older than me, but he's been grappling since he was like, bro, like 12 or 13, and like he is a nasty black belt. And I see him go with like pro fighters with like higher weight classes, and he's just like ragdolling them and stuff. Like he's really good, and like he's watching film all the time. He's really helped me grow a lot, like in my wrestling and my grappling a lot. And then my striking coach is honestly been the same since my amateur career. I work a lot with Carl Darbuz, and he's helped me a lot in my career as well. And then I have a new strength and conditioning coach. His name is Joe Van Wood. He's been really good to me too. And I also have a sports psychologist that I work with, that his name is the Mental Sensei, and that's really like the team of coaches that I have right now. And also another head coach of mine is Roger Crawl. So I have all those guys right now in my corner, and yeah, I'm pretty grateful for the team that I have around me.
Yeah, no, you just named off some pretty hardcore dudes, especially your head coach and your jiu-jitsu coach. Tavares is pretty well known at jiu-jitsu as a guy that, like, if he gets on you, if he gets your back,
Yeah,
man,
he's a backpack, bro.
yeah, he always ends up in a transition where he ends up on the back, and I'm like, how the hell is he doing this to people? Everyone he rolls with, I've seen footage of him rolling. I've also seen some competition stuff, and he always ends up on a backpack, and I'm like, how the hell? I can't do it to save my ass half the time.
Yeah,
Here this
bro.
guy is, and it just whatever transition's happening, whatever scramble's happening, everyone knows he's gonna go for the back. And somehow he ends up on somebody's back, and we're like,
Yeah. Bro, I was telling him he needs to be on like the Dora the Explorer show or something, and be the backpack. He gotta make something out of that.
he's gonna wear whole fuchsia
Yeah,
backpack,
he has to
little
wear an
face.
all purple rash guard, purple shorts. We gotta get this thing going.
He's just gonna get a good contract. He might be able to get with the what's her name, She's Dominican, but she does like the Dora the Explorer cosplay. She does all the backflips and shit. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't.
Bro, I'll send you the video. She's fucking top notch. She actually made a music video as Dora the Explorer. It had me dying rolling. And
Oh
it
shit.
was a dembo of all things, I think, too.
Oh shit.
That
Okay.
was hilarious. And I was like, my man could get on that train because she's like out here doing backflips, front flips. She's I believe she's a stunt coordinator.
Oh
So
shit.
it's actually really dope that she's like able to get this type of fame. But moving on to you, sir. You're proudly repping your Cuban heritage. Cuba has a rich history of Olympic sports, as well as, you know, pro boxing and MMA. And with stars like Yoel Romero, Masvidal, Jordanis de Spain, who's actually going to be going up against my countrymen. Best of luck on that one.
Yeah.
It's going to be island versus island. We'll have a great time. But what do you think makes Cuba such a force in combat sports, especially?
Man, I feel like it's just the upbringing. I feel like, you know, I know like over there they definitely don't have it easy, and I feel like just the way, like even the way I was raised, like my mom, granted she doesn't like that I fight, but I remember like as a kid, like even being scared of confrontation. Like I remember one time in school, like a kid hit me and I didn't hit him back just because I was a really scared kid. And I remember my mom, like I came home and she was like, "Oh, a kid hit you," and I was like, "Yeah, yeah." And she's like, "Oh, did you hit him back?" And I was like, "No, I didn't." And then my mom just slapped the shit out of me. And I was like, "Oh shit!" I was like, What did I do?" And she was like, "The next time someone hits you, you like hit them back." And then like little by little, I started like just like having more of that like wanting to get in fights and stuff. So like I don't know. I feel like it's just really raising the Cuban people, bro. And like, bro, we've been boxing and wrestling and doing judo and just all this stuff for so long, and there's like a real rich history. I feel like there's so many like Olympic medalists in boxing and in wrestling and in judo, and I feel like, you know, I feel like if things were different over there too, that man, there'd be even more like MMA fighters like and boxers out of Cuba. There's a like, yeah, I think it's a real strong island, and Dominican Republic as well, and Puerto Rico. I feel like all these islands, man, I feel like small communities just like, you know, I think just raise you a little different and just make you tougher and stuff in general.
Yeah, the Taino nations, as we were called once upon a time,
Yeah.
come from a fighting lineage. We like to fight. And, you know, Cuba has some of the greatest Olympians of all time. I mean, the greatest wrestler of all time and the Olympic level is from Cuba. And anybody that wants to dispute it, they can't. They really cannot. You got to go watch my man as a heavyweight destroy everyone. He just ragdolled everyone. And so with that rich history, it made sense. And that same story that happened to you happened to me. I got jumped. It wasn't even a fight. I got jumped by 9 people. And my mom was like, "Did you hit one of them back?" And I was like, "I was protecting myself." And they beat the shit out of me in my house. I got beat by my dad, my mom, one of my aunts, and my uncles. I was like, "Why y'all hitting me? I just got whooped. I just got jumped by 9 people. You think I'm gonna stand there?" My dad was like, "Why didn't you bite one of them so you knew who it was and you could get them later?" And I was like, "Yo, bro, what is wrong with you?"
I love that. I'm
in
that's
3rd
dope,
grade,
bro.
sir. Like, I don't have the mentality for that.
Yeah.
But my dad was like, "You should have bit like every single one that you could bite. And that way you would know who had the mark. You could go get him later." And I was like, "Yo, Dad, you have problems."
Yo, your dad's intense. I like it. I like this.
My dad was thugging. He was about that life.
That's dope, bro.
I understand that feeling. But yeah, the islands definitely have that camaraderie, and we're seeing it more and more in MMA now. We're seeing a lot of Cubans in MMA just kind of take the wave over.
Yeah.
And we kind of needed it for a while. After Mexico got their first world championship, I think Puerto Rico is the only island that has a world champion in MMA, like at the higher levels, that we were like, como que we need one of those.
Yeah, bro.
I don't care which island, but one of the islands. I mean, Aljo, technically, he's Jamaican, but like we haven't had any of the other islands get like a title in a while, so we need one.
For sure, bro.
But right now, you run a 4-fight winning streak, and then going into LFA, debut didn't go the way we wanted it to go. Yeah. But, I mean, you did fight the guy who's technically the number 1 contender, so I was kind of shocked that they threw you that deep into the pool that early, and you were the favorite, and with great reason. You know, he's a tough guy. It's not like, I think it was a pick'em fight, and I did say that earlier. I was like, oh, you know, this is a real pick'em fight because I think Christian is the better fighter technically, but my man's has a lot of experience. Both of them do. They both know this game. They're not new to this.
Yeah.
Both have a high level of competition. They can both strike. They both have great ground game. You blink, it's over. Unfortunately, you know, it went that way. I thought it was going to go the other way around. But yeah, I mean, it's flyweight. You guys are so fast. And the thing with flyweight that I think too, I think flyweight is one of the more dangerous weight classes. And I know people don't like to hear it because it's 125, but I'm like, brother, you have to understand. I have not seen a flyweight fighter that is not well-rounded, doesn't have good striking, doesn't have good jiu-jitsu, isn't ready to fight, and can end the fight at any point. Yeah. All of you guys can do that. That shit is scary as fuck. At least at lightweight, there's a couple guys that you know that they might beat on you, but they're not going to knock you out.
Yeah.
at 45, even some, and then 65, if it becomes a weight class, probably will be the same. But 70, 85, 95, 205, all those guys, they hit hard. But what nobody's suspecting of, the greatest MMA fighter of our generation is Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. He's
Oh
a
yeah.
125-pounder. The dude did 11 title defenses,
Yeah.
and he did shit we never saw. A takedown into an armbar? Are you fucking
Oh
serious?
yeah, the mighty bar, bro.
So going into LFA with that streak, and then now having a temporary setback for a major comeback, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Do you plan to do another LFA fight?
Man, the fight just happened, and man, it was extremely disappointing because obviously the fight didn't last really long. I felt like the little bit that was going on, I was showing like improvements that I made in my game, like at least early on, like in the way I was moving and stuff like that. And I felt like, bro, I feel like that fight would have gone longer. Like I feel like it just would have kept playing in my favor, but I feel like one mental lapse in judgment where like I caught him with like a good cross and then I kind of just stood in front of him, which yeah, that was just a really low level mistake on my part. But it's a hard lesson. I guess I gotta learn. But I was talking with my manager today, and we're trying to look at maybe me fighting soon on Anthony Pettis' show. So hopefully that I would definitely like down the line to get back on LFA. Yeah, I'm definitely not happy with that result. I was definitely going in there on a 4-fight win streak and stuff like that. I feel like one of the biggest things too was last year I had like 2 fight cancellations on fight week, and that was super tough. So I hadn't fought since January of last year, and at the same time, you know, like it's cool in the gym, you can improve and stuff like that. But I feel like in these fights is where you really get to go back and you have homework and you get to see where you did well, where you did bad. And I feel like with this fight, even though one mistake cost me the fight, I feel like that's one thing I can really work on now and not allow that to happen down the road. But yeah, I'm definitely looking, bro. I definitely want to fight like sometime late summer or early fall, and that was something I was talking about my manager literally like I think an hour before we got on this call. So yeah, that's what we're aiming for right now, and I think that's the best thing right now is I signed with Anthony Pettis's management company, and I feel like I can have more consistency in my career now because before I had that consistency with Titan FC, but then I don't know exactly what's been going on with Titan FC. It just hasn't really been going. And then after that, I was kind of just left in limbo and not really having fights and stuff like that. So it's nice to, have a goal to shoot towards to and stuff like that. But yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Rampage Jackson said that on the Jackson podcast. He said people don't understand MMA fighters. We don't have a trajectory. We're not aiming for something. We don't have a fight scheduled. It's just not the same. It doesn't have the same energy. It
Yeah.
doesn't have the same movement. You're not really preparing for war. You're just kind of just sitting on the sideline in limbo, waiting for something to finally fucking happen.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't want that at all. So I am hoping that we hear soon from some more fight news for you.
Yeah.
But on the business end of things, because I'm happy that you did, decide to go with Showtime's management group.
Yeah.
Great fucking people.
Yeah.
Amazing folks. But I see that you have your own merch now on Change Levels.
Yeah.
We'll put the link in the description. But what have you learned since branding yourself? Like, what was that lesson? Like, if you could go to the younger fighters and go, listen, I'm branding myself now. Here's what I wish I kind of knew before I did this shit, and here's what you should do.
Bro, I think honestly, a lot of times people look at like at least me when I first started, I just thought of fighting as like the money you get from winning or losing a fight, right? And that's not really what it is. I feel like I mean that's a part of it obviously because once you turn pro you make money. But like I think the biggest thing that I've done especially with like the last couple fights that I've won, it's like you got to look at yourself as like a brand, right? And like when you win these fights like your stock like goes up. So it's like if it's like teaching private lessons or if it's having merch, like if I have merch or if I want to get more private clients, like after I win a fight, like now I can start being like, hey, like I'm selling this or like now your wave is riding high. So now you can like make profit on these other areas as well. And I feel like that's like the biggest thing, I guess, like on the business side of fighting that I've learned is just using fighting also to like create like different avenues to make money outside of it. I would say is probably the biggest thing and not just only looking at the money because I still feel like in MMA we have a lot of work to do as far as like making fighter pay better. Like I'm not sitting here saying it needs to be something like baseball or something like that, but I do feel like man, like even if we turn pro on the regional scene, I still think we should be making more money than what we're making right now. And I feel like even now in the UFC, the starting pay is like 12 and 12 or something like that, which better than before. Because I remember when I first started watching MMA, I was like 2 and 2, which is ridiculous. And I feel like bare minimum, bro, it should be like 20 and 20. Like that should be just like bare minimum. You know, like I feel like even for me, right? Like I'm 15 fights deep into a professional career and I love it. And you know, I'm God willing I stay healthy. I want to get to like 30, 40, 50 fights. But like I still have to work a job and I still have to do all this other stuff. Like you don't really see that in any other sport where you have to like work. Like most guys once they turn pro or even have like they get to a certain point, like they can just focus on that. But I don't feel like that's so much the case in MMA, you know. So, but it's obviously it's a very new sport, and I feel like it's ever growing and ever changing. So,
yeah, I had a feeling that it was going to be this where it is now. I felt like it was going to be way past this, where
yeah,
at least sooner. I thought we would get here faster because I remember during the time when John Jones had a Nike contract and a Gatorade contract, and then he fucked it up. And then
yeah,
and then Anderson Silva had a Burger King and Nike contract,
yeah,
and he had the Nike contract with like the local sports team in Brazil. That was brilliant marketing. Why are we not doing that? The
yeah,
fight kits are cool, especially the world champions and the bigger guys. But like the people at the lower level, they kind of deserve to have their own sponsors. They deserve to have their own money because that's how a lot of these guys got paid back then.
yeah,
Fighters would tell me that they weren't making a lot of money because when I first got interested in the sport was during like the Ultimate Fighter 1 season.
mm,
That was when I was first watching the sport, and one of a good friend of mine, his dad was competing in MMA, and so I got to talk to him. I was like, hey, Mr. Daniels, how are you doing today? Can you kind of break down the fight sport for me? And he's like, well, I do kickboxing in Europe and Asia, and I make a lot of money there. But I make some money in MMA, but I love MMA more than I love kickboxing, but kickboxing pays me better right now.
mm,
So I was like, how do MMA guys make money then? And he's like, they don't actually make money from the fights. They actually make more money from the endorsement deals.
yeah,
And that's during the time when we had the banners and you could see like the guy with like 600, sponsors on there.
yeah,
I kind of wish we bought that back. Like that was a great marketing thing that even boxing, there were people that I knew there in the boxing world that were like, yo, we would love to have something like that. A banner with all your sponsors on it? That shit sounds dope.
yeah,
And I kind of wish that we would go back to that time when you can have different companies. I feel like the UFC's at a level though where it's not like the PFL. PFL has Takedown as their only ambassador right now. Venom is the ambassador for the UFC, and not that Venom is not a good product or not a good company. They make fucking phenomenal equipment, but like fighters should be able to have their own branded kits with whatever business they want. And similar to like again an NFL or an MLB or an NBA, obviously we can't go all the way that deep where they have way deeper pockets behind them.
yeah,
But this sport, you should have like a fucking Nike contract if you fuck with Nike heavy, or a Jordan contract. I think the only person in boxing to have a Jordan contract was Gennady Golovkin. I think him and oh my god, why can't I remember his name? I'm so sorry, and I remember this gentleman's face clear
huh.
as day. God damn it! He was WBC light heavyweight champion, and I think middleweight too. He went and fought Chad Dawson and knocked him
Andre
clean out.
Ward.
It was Andre Ward. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
yeah,
Thank you for saving me there. My brain like
I got
skipped
you,
a beat.
bro. I'm a big Andre
Andre
Ward fan.
Ward, yeah, huge fan of his too. I don't know why his name wouldn't come out of my head, and I could see him clear as day in the Nike kit, too, in the Jordan kit with the like
Yeah,
lightning bolt and the clean ass Jordans.
hey,
So there weren't a lot of guys getting Jordan contracts in boxing, but why can't MMA have those things like a Nike and Adidas, and because those companies make MMA gear too, and they really do cater toward Everlast and like stuff like that. There should be no reason why a fighter should be making 12 and 12 when they're at the biggest show. There should be no reason why these guys and girls when they get their fucking contract bonuses, oh, you got fight of the night bonus. Oh, I was living in a fucking Winn-Dixie parking lot. Like that's just the saddest shit to hear. You're like,
yeah, bro.
what? You living in a camper near a Winn-Dixie? That's not conducive to this level of sport.
Yeah,
And I'm happy you said that too. And obviously fighter pay is like one of those weird ones. It's difficult because as a business you want it to make sense for the business and the individual, but I do feel like there's still a way for us to go before we get these crazy branded kits with Nikes and the Jordans and
yeah,
because we can. MMA is mainstream, the UFC
hell
is
yeah,
mainstream. This sport has grown so fucking much in less than like 10 years. I started watching MMA when I was like 10, maybe 11 years old. I'm 29. In 18 years this sport is nothing like what it used to be, and it's so much better now. Thank God for it. So,
yeah,
guys like you who still have, a ways to go, but we all know, like, hey, when you get there, this shit is going to be the pinnacle for you.
yeah,
And it should be that way for every fighter that comes into that level. Like you said, 12 and 12, that's I don't know. I feel like it's criminally underpaid, and it's a little staunchy. It's a little shitty.
Yeah, and I still like I feel like because even now, like I think the most I've made in a fight, like here on the regional scene, has been like maybe 4,000 something, maybe like 5K. You know, that's been the most I've ever made. And at the end of the day, like I never got into this for money or anything like that. I just, I've always gotten into this for like the passion that I have for this sport and stuff. But at the same time, it's like, like if I'm able to make more money in this, I feel like you also just see better fighters in general, right? Because like if us fighters, if we don't have to like work a job and we can dedicate more time to training, like I don't think it's unrealistic to even make like 20 and 20 because I feel like that's something that's very doable and it's like that's a huge difference from 12,000 to like 20 and 20, And I feel like you'll just see a lot more fighters being able to invest more into their career and stuff like that. Because I feel like a lot of times, like, and we'll have even more fighters, in my opinion. I just feel like a lot of times, like, a lot of good fighters stop fighting too because of the money. Because I've seen a lot of guys in the gym that are really good fighters, and like they'll have one little setback and they'll be like 7-2 or like 8, and they're still really good, and they're like a little win streak away from getting in the UFC or something. And they stop fighting because they're like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna have a kid and I'm not making enough money, and they end up stop fighting. And it's like, I feel like, man, I'm hoping I feel like it's definitely gotten better from before, like you said, but I hope like in the next like 10, 15, 20 years, whatever it is, like it just continues to grow because I feel like myself included speaking, and even like future MMA athletes deserve to make like a lot more than what we make.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. I agree, brother. Here for that one because we definitely want to see the
Yeah.
growth of the sport consistently. And I mean, I think the UFC's valuation is like $11 billion now. So that's ridiculous with like what a 360 fight roster, and they just cut like 6 fighters this past week. I mean, at this point, we definitely should be advocating. Maybe not. Fuck it. Maybe we don't get 20 and 20 for the fight, but 12 and 12 for the initial first fight, and then the second fight, we can do 15 and 15.
Yeah,
That kind
something
of
like
makes it
that.
a
Yeah.
little easier because now you're like, wait a minute, now I've proven myself. I proved that I belonged here. I did that first fight. Now, let me get a little bit more reward. And like I said, the fact that we don't have fucking fight kits with Nike and Jordan and
Yeah.
Adidas and those brands that like that's a home brand. Everyone knows that brand. Everyone can afford that brand. Why not? Like these fighters deserve it, and jiu-jitsu athletes too. Like we're at that point now where we're starting to see jiu-jitsu get to that point.
Yeah.
Why the fuck is MMA so far behind? We should absolutely have our own fighter kits. Gamma is the amateur MMA station version of like the Olympic committee for MMA around the whole world. Gamma has fucking fight kits, and they have fight kits with different companies, and they should fucking do it because these athletes that are coming up, they want to be the best in the world, and obviously that's what we're here for. But now we're gonna go back into the business of it a little bit more. You're managed by Showtime Group, like you said, a phenomenal fucking company. So far, what have been the benefits you've seen since being signed to a management agency like Showtime Group for a lot of these young fighters who are like, I don't know if I want to sign yet? What would you recommend, or what would you say is the benefit so far?
Man, I had talked to a lot of different managers before that. Because obviously before my career was just handled by my one of my head coaches, Roger Crawl. But obviously, he's a busy guy. He's Amanda Nunez's coach, and and he runs a whole MMA gym and stuff. So I just wanted like I guess a little extra help on my like more eyeballs on my MMA career helping me. Like obviously Roger still manages my career at the same time, but I talked to like different managers and like, bro, like, bro, some of these guys, bro, like they'll just get you whatever fight they can, and like they don't care if it's like a matchup that makes sense for you. They don't care about like any of that stuff. But like when I started talking to Showtime, it was actually a friend of mine, Garrett, that he like does the fight analyst. He's a close friend of mine. He's been my friend since my pro debut, and he started following my career since then. He recommended me Showtime. Got one of his close friend who's my manager now, and he's like still fighting, and he's a welterweight. His name is Peter Pettis. Man, really good fighter. And man, I think the biggest difference when I talk to him is he's a fighter himself, so like he understands me and stuff like that. So I feel like when I started talking to him, it was super cool. And then like even just like when he approaches me with matchups, like he's like, like we'll talk to your coaches and we'll see like what you think about this man. Like, and it's just like it's cool. Like also knowing that he's working even when I'm like, cause even now like this fight, whatever it wasn't the result that I wanted. Like he already messaged me saying like, keep your head up, focus. And then he was telling me, he's like, look, like no stress. Like, we're gonna start working on this so you can stay active and stuff. And it's just nice having that. So I would say, like, if you're a young fighter, that's important, because I feel like the worst thing when you're young in your career is like not having a goal. Like, let's say you fight a fight and then it's like you look around and there's just nothing and stuff like that. So like, it's definitely good to have that consistency. But I would say Showtime, brother, they just have so many like different like promotions and connections and stuff like that. And I think that's really important, because like that was only my first fight like outside of Florida, and I feel like it was really out of my comfort zone. And I feel like obviously before I get to a big show, like none of my fights are, maybe if I'm lucky once I'll get to fight in Miami or something, but like a lot of my fights are going to be outside of here, so I need to get used to those experiences and stuff. So it's really cool to be signed under a management company like that has so many connections, and they're always trying to help you and things like that. So it's definitely very beneficial, I feel.
Solid, brother. I'm happy to hear that. And yeah, I've had a feeling that, when you make those choices, especially with as much experience as you have, it's always a good choice to go with people you feel rely on. Like you said, to not have someone who's looking out for not just your best interest, but who looks at you and goes, you know what, I remember when I fought this person and they put me against them, and I didn't like that feeling. To have such a support system definitely makes a big difference, especially in this sport. This is a sport where everybody goes, well, the fighter does everything. Like, not really. The fighter does the fighting, which is the hard part, and, getting in and actually going for it. But the support system is what keeps this person thriving or alive, or keeps him moving in this career. So I'm happy that you got a great support system with Showtime Agency and just everything that they're doing. We're hoping to see you next fight too. Going back to your debut, if you could impart your wisdom on the young Kraken Ynastrilla who made his debut in Bellator, what wisdom would you impart? Like, what nuggets of wisdom would you just like, hey kid, here, just sprinkle that on there?
Bro, I think the biggest thing, and I feel like I'm still learning it now, is I feel like when I first started, I thought like it was just this, and I've realized that MMA is a lot of like this. Like, I remember, because at one point I had lost 3 fights in a row, and this was like during COVID, when like my gym shut down, like I lost my job, and like I was taking fights, not really having like structure because my gym had shut down. And I remember just feeling very lost at that point, because I got to like 6-4, and I was 6-1, and I was like, yo, what the fuck is going on? Like, I worked so hard, but like obviously I was doing things the wrong way. But I remember when I was still at Coconut Creek, there was a friend of mine that he's still a friend of mine now. His name is Juan Puerta. That he's, one of the top ranked flyweights, and he's like 24-8 right now. But he was like telling me, he's like, yeah, at one point I was like 9-6, and I had lost like 2 or 3 in a row, and then even like I started looking at like other guys like Kai Kara France, like he was 7-6 at one point. Like I didn't know that. Like he had a 3-fight losing streak. He in the regional scene, he was 7-6, almost a 500 fighter, and he turns it around, gets like a 4 or 5 fight win streak, goes to the UFC, and he ended up fighting for the interim flyweight title and stuff like that. And like even guys like Dan Hooker that were 4-3, or even like a teammate of mine, that the guys that are willing to stay on the road the longest are the ones that like reap the benefits. Like you look at a guy like Michael Bisping, won the title at the end of his career. You look at a guy like Clover Teixeira, won the title at the end of his career. You look at a guy like Charles Oliveira, who was like win one, lose two, win one, and then out of nowhere breaks through. Or even a guy like Jan Blachowicz. That I remember watching Jan Blachowicz like in the beginning of his UFC career, and if you would have told me at that time that guy is gonna be the champion one day, and I would have been like, nah, I don't see it. But so yeah, I would say, to sum up what I'm trying to say, is just like follow the wave, and there's going to be a lot of ups and downs, and you just got to keep your head up high. There's going to be like a lot of negativity when you're on the lows, but just focus on like how we were talking about, that support circle and the people that really support you and love you, cuz I feel like that's the most important thing that'll keep your head strong and keep you going in this sport. 'Cause it's definitely not an easy sport, and I feel like there are a lot of ups and downs, and you just got to learn how to, work your way through it, honestly.
Yeah. To quote Perez from yesterday, he's like, tough times don't last, tough people do, and he almost quit after his skid, and thank God, like a person like Colin Oyama's in his corner, because that guy has so much fucking wisdom and a truly great coach. We had Gianni Vasquez Kryptonita, he was on here recently too.
Yeah, he's
That's
a
a
great fighter too, Gianni. Yeah.
fucking phenomenal fighter. I don't know why more people didn't know who he was, and I caught him on like an IG video of him promoting his UNF fight at 25. And I was like, oh, who the hell's this guy? Like, he's got, Ya Baila Sola in the background, got the
Yeah.
Mexican flag. I was like, this is a hard ass promo. Apparently, it was all his. He didn't like, UNF wasn't doing that promo package for him. He did it for himself.
Oh shit.
And I was like, wow, dude, who is this guy? And then I started watching his fights, and I was like, yo, this guy has fought everybody everywhere. He is not afraid of shit. This guy's gonna be a legitimate contender. When I had him on, he was like, yo, brother, watch by September that UFC Noche UFC fight. He's like, I plan to be there. And I was like, man, this guy's going places. So it's like you said, it's not always like this. It's not the trajectory of like this. This isn't what happens in most people's career. Most of the time it goes like this and then like this and like that.
Yeah.
Here, there. And we saw that again, like you said, Jan Blachowicz was like 4-4 when he got into the UFC, and then he was like 3-4 when he was actually in the UFC. And I was like, wow, this guy's having a hard time adjusting. But like you said, it didn't matter. You're just gonna have to learn from it and just get better, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
And I'm happy you have that mindset, because not a lot of dudes can really hang in like that. I mean, you're only 28.
Yeah.
We're 6 months difference, maybe 11 months difference between you and I in age.
Yeah, I just turned 28 in March.
I turned 29 in March. We were both Pisces. I remember that.
Oh, dope as fuck. Hell yeah.
I remember you had the picture with the Pisces crew, and I was like, my peoples.
Hey, March what?
March 9th.
Hey, I'm March 18th, so yeah, we're close. We're
good, brother. We ain't here. March already, we pushing it down like this.
Damn right, bro.
Swimming right through it all. But you've got a nice long career ahead of you. Over these next 5 years, where do you envision yourself in your career?
Man, obviously, like Friday, definitely like put a wrench in some of the plans that I had. But at the same time, I feel like it's kind of like how you told me, just a small bump in the road. I definitely feel like I'm only getting better. Like, I feel like I am one of the most well-rounded flyweights, and I feel like obviously it just takes time to like materialize that, like when it counts in these fights. But I feel like I'm in the right direction of having like one of the most well-rounded skill sets in this weight class. I definitely see in the next 5 years me being in the UFC, man. Or in some kind of major show. I feel like PFL now is talking about something about opening up a flyweight division. So just being in some kind of a major show, I definitely want to finish this year with like another fight or two and be on the winning column. And then, man, at some point next year, or even the year after that, because I've always told myself, I see a lot of guys get to the UFC when they have like 6, 7 fights. And I've always told myself I never wanted to do that. I'd rather get a lot of my experience outside of it and just, as soon as I get into the UFC, be a contender. Like, you look at a guy like even Steve Erceg, he got into the UFC 3 fights, and now he's fighting Pantoja now in Brazil for like the belt. That's kind of the approach that I do. Even a guy like Calvin Kattar, he came to the UFC with like a whole bunch of experience already and stuff like that. But definitely in the next 5 years, I see myself being in that UFC or being in some kind of a major show. I definitely see that in the next coming years.
Yeah, but like I see it too. And like you said, then you end up with a guy like who has a lot of experience, like an Erceg, or like fucking Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler came in and people were talking all types of shit. And I was like, bro, I remember he came on and I had a friend who's a casual, and he was like, who the fuck is this Michael Chandler guy? And I was like, brother, that's a 3-time Bellator lightweight champ. That guy's a demon. He's on demon time, brother. When he shows up, I haven't seen that guy have a boring fight, and he's predominantly a wrestler, but he stands and bangs with dude. And like you said, in Steve Erceg right now, he's coming up. Unfortunately, there's, I wish they had built his hype a little bit more, because he's such a great fighter. Small team, has a true understanding of the sport. He really does know the sport in and out, and has a deep love for it. And I watched some of the fights that he had back in Perth. A lot of his fights are on YouTube, so you can watch those older fights of his.
Yeah.
He just improves every fight. So, I'm hoping that he has a great fight with Pantoja. Pantoja's a great fighter, truly great fighter. But I feel like with that performance, his last performance, as you know, the fans want to see blood. They want to see violence. And it's like, you can't always do that. That's not a tactical, that's not what a tactical person with like experience would do. You're not stupid. Cool. But I am happy to hear that you're going for the UFC. I think you belong in there. If you and Gianni fight, I'm sitting that one out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sit back and just be like, I'm friends with both these niggas, so I'm not saying shit. Cool. See me like, what's his name? Don King. Nyak, nyak, nyak. Only in America. That's it. I'm gonna sit my ass there and go like this and be chilling. But I would love to see that. Definitely, you guys definitely belong at that level. You guys both have the experience for it. But ultimately, what's your goal for this sport? Like, what is that ultimate goal? What is the pinnacle for you in MMA?
Man, definitely, bro. Like, at some point in this regional scene, I would like to win a title. I feel like that would be like a goal that I've always kind of set for myself, like on the regional scene. Obviously, it just comes down to like opportunities and if I get that or not. But other than that, bro, I don't want to be one of those guys that gets to the UFC and like I just got there and then I lose 3 in a row and I get cut and that's like I'm a UFC vet, you know, like I don't feel like that's even being a UFC vet. So like obviously my goals is I want to be the champion in the UFC or PFL or whatever major show I get into. I think that's the cool thing that I like now about seeing like PFL kind of taking off. It just gives us fighters like more platforms and different shows to be on and stuff like that. But I definitely want to be a world champion. I want to be one of the best flyweights. Definitely another goal of mine is I want to be known as one of the most well-rounded fighters, and I feel like I'm slowly working my way there. And yeah, those are some of my goals, man. I want to also have a lot of fights in this game. I feel like I see a lot of guys were like, let's say like a George Masvidal, right? He has like over 50 fights, right? And then I'll hear people be like, oh, but he has 14 losses. And it's like, yeah, but dude, he has 38 wins and it's because I remember this argument. I forgot who I was having this argument with. This is obviously my opinion. You know, everybody has different opinions, but like, I think it was talking when like Khabib and like Charles Oliveira fought, right? Like this is obviously during the time that Charles had like defended the belt already like 2 times after beating Gaethje. Like I was arguing, I felt like Charles, in my opinion, stacks up higher in like the lightweight GOAT rankings just for like all of his accomplishments. But then people try to say, well, no, but Khabib was undefeated and Charles has like 8 or 9 losses. But I feel like just what he did and the amount of fights that he has, because he has more wins than Khabib has total fights, you know? So like I feel like there's
Right.
something there's something to be said about the longevity of like an MMA career. I feel like a lot of guys get to like 20s, 25. When you start seeing guys have like 40, 50, like I feel like those are like the true like goats of this sport, you know? That's just my opinion though.
No, I completely agree because I had a friend of mine who's like, he's a casual. Again, love the guy,
Yeah.
but he's fucking casual. He doesn't know what to
Yeah.
talk about at the time. He's like, we nobody dominated ground and pound like Khabib. I was like, there's this guy called Mark Coleman who is the father of ground and pound.
Yeah.
And then there's this guy called Tito Ortiz, who, as much as I fucking hated Tito Ortiz, he was a phenomenal ground fighter.
Yeah, Tito's hard
Can't sit
to.
there and fucking sit there and be like, Tito was garbage. Come on, guys. He was the world fucking champion. Look what he did with Frank Shamrock. And I was like, so, there have been better guys on the ground. Habib's control is definitely the best, but I don't think he's
Yeah.
the most dangerous person on the ground.
Yeah.
There are guys who do things on the ground that we're like, who the fuck is this guy? To your point, a loss in MMA is not like boxing. Nobody's trying to be fucking Floyd Mayweather in MMA. We don't need an undefeated guy. We want a guy who goes out there and win, lose, or draw fights. Like Max Holloway has losses. Potentially one of the greatest fighters of all time.
Yeah.
Justin Gaethje lost, but Justin Gaethje went out on a blaze of fucking fire.
Yeah.
How many fans do you think he won with that fight? Even though he lost. How many more fucking people will watch a Justin Gaethje fight?
And it's like the same thing too. You look at a guy like Charles Oliveira, he has like double-digit losses. I still think he is top 3, one of the best lightweights of all time. And that guy, like every time he fights, like, bro, he doesn't even speak English. He doesn't talk any trash. Like, bro, when I hear that Charles Oliveira's on a card, I don't care what day it is. Like, if I have something planned, like those plans got to be put on hold because I got to watch him fight. You know, because I just know he's gonna bring it every single time.
Yeah, Full Violence did a video. It's like the meme like where people talk shit about somebody, and then he shows up. No one had a bad thing to say about Charles Oliveira. They just didn't. They love the guy. And he shows up and he's like, "Hi," and he gives them a hug, and they're all like, "Oh my god!" And I'm like, "Yeah," because Charlie Olives is not a hateful dude. You can't disrespect him. He don't disrespect nobody. And then I came to find out, like, before the Makachev fight, he had to have LASIK surgery in his eyes.
Yeah.
This motherfucker was seeing 3 people when he was fighting. And I was like, excuse me?
Bro, he said he'd aim in the middle. I'm like, God damn, bro.
When he said that shit, I lost it. I was like, are you telling me that the greatest lightweight in the world right now can't see shit and he's winning? You're telling me that this dude fought Michael Chandler, got hit with the best shot, got rocked, rolled around and was like, shit, there's 3 of them. Hit the one in the middle and won? How the fuck? There are people who have their eyesight perfectly fine, couldn't do it once. This guy did it multiple times. And like you said, those title defenses, regardless of the loss, yeah, for me, he's higher up in the list of lightweight goats because he did actually defend the title multiple times. And he did fight the top of the divisions. Yeah. So it wasn't like he's kind of skimmed over the top. And, no disrespect to Khabib. I think Khabib is a phenomenal fighter, but I don't think he's the greatest lightweight of all time. The greatest lightweight of all time, in my opinion, and I'm super biased, and I will admit my bias, is BJ Penn. BJ Penn was the greatest lightweight champion of all time. and I don't know why people want to debate it. They can't. Like, did you watch him fight? Did you
Oh
watch what
yeah.
this guy did to people? These are the top contenders. Diego Sanchez moved down from 85 to 70 and then 55, and he looked like he didn't belong anywhere near BJ Penn.
Even when he beat Kenny, that was super impressive too. I was a huge Kenny Florian
Yeah,
fan. He
bro,
made
he beat
Kenny
Kenny
look
Florian.
bad.
Yeah, and Joe Stevenson. Joe Daddy Stevenson was a real prospect, and unfortunately, a lot of casuals who just joined the sport don't know. But Joe Stevenson was like a legitimate threat. He would hit dudes and they'd go down. Sean Shirk, another guy who was terrifying.
Oh yeah, Sean. Yeah,
He's like 4 times his own size, and after weigh-in, he looked 4 times bigger. We'd be like, "Yo, who the fuck is that?"
yeah. Fucking ate the last guy at the weigh-in.
Right? He looks like fucking like a miniature Brock Lesnar, and we were like, "What the fuck? What does this guy do to rehydrate? How big is he?
Yeah,
Had to be at least 180 pounds. He's fucking massive."
bro.
And then he went and fought BJ, and BJ beat the unholiest of shits out of him. So for me, like you said, that whole undefeated shit, that goes over the water when it doesn't even matter. It don't make no fucking difference.
For sure.
And if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense in MMA.
Damn
But
right.
that's how it is. But gonna leave you with this question, and I do ask this as the end because I feel like it means a lot to the fans to understand who they're supporting. When it's all said and done, you're taking the gloves off for the last time. They're ripping off the gloves, and you put the gloves down in the center of the cage. What would you like your legacy in this sport to be?
Damn. For me, man, I think my legacy, I would really just want it to be that, like, I always try to fight like the toughest guys, that I'm always trying to be in exciting fights. I would really just want, because I feel like now for like casual, like some casual fans and stuff, like I'll hear guys be like, this guy's a grappler, or this guy's a striker, or this guy is a wrestler, or whatever, right? Like, I want my legacy to be like, that Christian was like a true MMA fighter. Like if you're a fan of MMA, I want to make you a fan of like myself. Like, that's kind of how I view myself. Like, I want to be able to put on a performance. Like, if I have a fight where I can kickbox, I have a fight where I can wrestle, I have a fight where I can grapple. And I feel like, yeah, that's the legacy that I want to leave behind. I'm not a big into like the whole trash talk stuff. I feel like I just want to go in there and put on the most exciting fights, and like from the first belt to the last belt, just give it my all every single time. And that's what I want my legacy to be, honestly.
All right, so we got people knowing that you want to scrap, and that every time they watch you fight, it's a real scrap. This is war. This is what we do. This is what we love.
Yeah.
I fucking respect that, my brother. My brother, thank you for your time, man. Gonna close off the show, and then we just had the fight in LFA. For those of you who don't already, go on IG, follow Christian. I'm gonna put the link in the description on both Spotify, Apple, and YouTube, so that you guys can see. We're also gonna put a link to his clothing and especially his collection on there as well. That way, you guys can continue to follow him. Christian, you have anything else you want to let the people at home know about it?
Yeah, man. He's gonna put down those links and stuff. I look forward to keeping all you guys updated on my career, man. I'm only 28 years old. I know I have 15 fights already, but like, the best is still to come. And I feel like I'm really just, I feel like I'm not even scratching the surface yet of how good I can be. And I feel like my prime is still to come. And I feel like there's gonna be a lot of more good performances out of me. And I appreciate everybody through the wins and the losses. And I really want to give you a big shout out too for giving me this platform. And yeah, man, that's really all I have to say.
My brother, hey man, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Hoping to do this again season 2. Have you again in the future. We'll see where your career is at that point as well. Ladies and gentlemen, the Kraken, Cristian Ynastrilla, has been with us today. Cuba, Miami 305, always, all day. He wraps up the U with the University of Miami, showing all the love. He came through. Thank you so much for your curiosity. Thank you so much for your time to those of you at home. And we want to wish you nothing but you to keep your peace and keep your prosperity, keep your health. God bless.
My pro debut. And I remember the craziest thing that I was like, oh shit, this is getting real. There was like a part in the contract where it said, if you die, and I was like, oh, okay. And they're like, we'll give $500,000, and they're like, you can pick like 4 people that you would want to receive, like they would split it between 4 people.